If you're tired of hearing the same old basic mindset and motivational fluff talk, you've come to the right show. Welcome to ProjectME with Tiffany Carter, the podcast, where we dish on everything from managing that crazy brain of yours to manifesting abundance to my straightforward, actionable steps that will make you major money online. Now, I'm not your typical multi-millionaire entrepreneur. It takes a small village to keep my anxiety and depression in check. I'm inherently disorganized with an intense obsession with office supplies. Your girl here is a digital marketing content expert who's generated over $200 million in sales. I promise by tuning in twice a week, you will get a much needed refreshing dose of truth, clarity, and cash-making advice. Now let's get to it. What up, my people, my posse, my fellow crazies? I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, and I am going to be putting out a new series of episodes for you to help you heal your money wounds. Your stored childhood trauma is blocking your abundance, and you don't have to be aware of it, and you might even be aware of it. And I'm going to give you some examples of this, but we've got to really go several layers deeper than you're already going in order for us to shift and repair and address these wounds, these money traumas. It's like this intricate web, and you have things that came from being marketed to in society since as early as we were watching, those of you who watch like Sesame Street or Barney. That came in from that way, how kids get marketed to, how your parents got marketed to, where you live in the world. There's different unwritten rules around money and belief systems. There's different codes of conduct that are considered appropriate or inappropriate around money. There are lots of wounds within the family unit. Some are said, some aren't said. Sometimes it's just an energy and you just picked up on it. These things are so woven in. If we don't get down to the root of it, you're going to continue taking 5 steps forward and then taking 7 steps back. And I know that insanity for you is getting really old. I'm sure you get as stumped as I used to, and I want to share this with you. Every time I came into contact with someone like virtually or in person who had, the lifestyle, the freedom, the abundance I desired, I'd get mesmerized and inspired. And then it would quickly shift into, but how did they get there? And then some of these people were like motivational speakers, and then they'd give like those vague statements and circle talk, like, I took a risk. I decided to prioritize my dream one day. And I felt like they made it sound so simple, which then confused me further because it all seemed so big and so involved to get from where I was at the time, making $17,000 a year, to where I wanted to be, which was basically making a shit ton of money on my terms, controlling my schedule, and doing something that actually meant something in the world, that meant something to me, that felt fun to me, that felt fulfilling to me, while helping other people. And I know you have the same questions and frustrations when you're scrolling. You might even have a family member who is in a spot where you're like, it might even be me, where someone's in a spot where you're like, God, but how did they do that? It all seems like so much and so far away. And now that I am one of those people who I admired even 10 years ago, whose life I coveted, who I saw as proof of what was possible for me, I feel it's my duty and responsibility to tell you, show you, and guide you to creating your desired abundant life. And maybe for you, it's not being a multimillionaire. Maybe it's making enough money to live simply on a farm and only work 5 hours a week or not really work at all. Maybe for you, it's retiring your husband. Maybe for you, abundance means having complete control over your schedule and only, working on the projects you love while prioritizing your wellness and your life first. So abundance doesn't just mean money. It means abundance in community, in joy, in your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, in your fulfillment. And your childhood wounds are absolutely blocking you from getting this. And some of you have done some work around it, but there's always more work to be done in this area. I hate to break it to you. It's just never going to end. And it's not going to end because it is that intricate web. It's so involved, and we are constantly taking in information and things, and we have so much stuff that's processing, and then things happen in life, and then we have to address that issue. So I'll use an example first from my own life when it comes to the stored childhood trauma blocking abundance. I truly thought that in order to have the abundance I wanted in love, in money, in life, in all the things, that it was going to be this insane amount of work, and I was going to have to heavily sacrifice to get there. And I already was burned out. I already was busting my ass and doing all the things and saying no to going to concerts and trips and things I wanted to do because I was either so tired, or I was working conventions that I volunteered myself for at work thinking that was going to get me, I don't know, a promotion or something. Wow, I was like, really? I mean, the amount of time I gave away versus what I got back, it just blows my mind when I go back and think about it in the corporate world. And I know some of you are still in it right now, which is why you're wanting to get yourselves out of it and reclaim your life. Because I thought it was going to be such a big sacrifice to really have what I want, and I was already sacrificing so much, I was like, I couldn't see a way out. I basically created, with my own belief system, I created a maze that had an entry point and no way out. So picture, yourself, or even picture me as a rat, and I'm in this maze, and I go, okay, I'm going this direction, hit a wall. Now this direction, hit a wall. Now that direction, now everything's a dead end. At some point, you're going to give up. You're going to say, fuck this. I guess this isn't meant for me. I guess this isn't it. And every promotion I got passed up for, every time it came time for the annual raise, and it was like underwhelming, like a 2% raise. Or every time I wanted something, or a relationship, or something didn't work out, it was just felt like another dead end. And then you start losing your hope. You start losing that feeling of, this is really possible for me. And you're just mentally fried. And so that's how the belief, where that came from in childhood, is I watched my mom as an entrepreneur work 7 days a week. And clearly there was, if you've been listening to the show, there was a lot of abuse in my household. So really having all that abundance sounded like a crazy trade-off. It sounded like it was going to be abusive. It sounded like it was going to be hell to achieve it, because that is what was modeled for me. That was my childhood experience. So why would I really go after it? That doesn't really sound too appealing. Let me give another example of one of my private clients. So he came to me because, yes, he wanted the exact strategy in order to grow and scale his business online in a rather quick matter, versus him trying to figure it out and slogging it out for years the slow way. But he also came to me because he was conscious of having money noise, as I call it. He was already conscious of it, and some of you are conscious of it, but you don't really know what to do about it. And you're like, okay, I listen to some of the podcasts. I do your abundance walks, Tiffany. I have your affirmation card deck. I read the books. I have a vision board, but it still hasn't left you. It's because you've not gone deep enough. And that is an amazing starting point. So acknowledge yourself for doing that kind of work. But that's just the first layer of a cake that has infinite layers, basically. We need you to go several layers deeper in order for this stuff to truly subside and quiet down in your nervous system and in your mind. So he had a belief, and this is someone who's publicly open about being a recovered alcoholic, like 30 years or something, which is incredible. And he's a 10-time Emmy Award winner. I mean, amazing accolades, been on TV for decades, et cetera, has all those things. And yet he does not have the abundance he wants in his life. He's the rat in the maze where there's always a dead end. And what we uncovered is he has a belief in there that that it wasn't safe for him to have that level of financial success, because then he could end up being the old him who was the alcoholic, who didn't treat his family or his kids as great as he could, who was kind of cocky and in an ego and didn't come from a place of service and was very self-involved. Even though he's not been that person for 30 plus years, he had a tie that the money was going to bring him back there. And then we go further. He also inherited a belief from society, from growing up in a certain generation, that money's the root of all evil. And the last thing he wants to be is evil, because this is the most generous, kind, compassionate, caring man that I've met in a long time. So the last thing he would want, he'd be horrified to even have a smidgen of being that type of a person. So he's been resisting his financial abundance because of this, because he had a belief that's what could happen. So I want you guys to just take a deeper look at what are you afraid could happen, you having that abundance. And again, any area of your life, it could be money, it could be success, it could be fame, it could be finding the relationship of your dreams, it could be in having close friendships, rekindled relationships, whatever, your own inner peace. What are you afraid of going from where you're at right now, which I know you don't want to be where you're at right now. That doesn't mean you don't have areas of your life that you love and you appreciate, or you might not have any areas like where I was at before. There wasn't any area of my life. I mean, aside from me having money, that was the only area of my life that was working. And it really wasn't working because of the trade-off I had to give for it. I was like selling my soul for it. So I want you to look, where do I think what am I going to have to do to go from where I'm at now to where I'm saying I want to be? What am I believing that I'm going to have to trade? Because you are believing there's a trade. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in any form of resistance. Because if you knew for a fact that it was 1,000% possible for you to have what you wanted, and that you just need guidance on having a strategy on how to build it, on how to get there, how to word things, figure it out, what you need to do for blah, 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 then you would be hiring right now the team of people to help you take your business to the next level or start your business. You would be applying to work with me privately. You would be hiring a graphics person. I mean, obviously it all depends on what kind of business. Let's say it's a product business. You would be actively and relentlessly searching for manufacturers. You would be really, really going for it if you truly believed it was possible for you and that you didn't have to trade something that felt horrible to you, and that you knew the likelihood of it working was incredibly high. You would take a loan out of the bank. You would use a credit card. You would find a way. I know that'd be crazy. Otherwise, now we have another issue, right? You'd be crazy. But there's some part of you that believes, I know you want this. Women like us, where we've come from, we don't We're not business owners. We don't make that kind of money. That's just not what our family does. We're coal miners, or we're factory workers, or that's just not for us. Maybe you inherited a belief that the only way to make money is to have money. So that's why the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. That could be something that you picked up. Maybe you were raised with someone who had money, and that person was not a great person, and you saw behind the scenes of how this person was. Maybe they were an addict. Maybe they were abusive. Maybe they cheated on your mom. And now you've absorbed that, and there's part of you that's afraid that if you go and have that kind of success and dedicate and prioritize time and energy and money towards building what it is you want to build, or writing a book or a podcast, whatever it is, that there's going to be consequences for the people that you love, similar to the consequences that you faced as a child. Maybe you had a marriage. You were married to someone who had money, and they're terrible. And they were terrible. They were a narcissist. And then people that you spoke to about it fed into, and it's like, yeah, that's really common for people like that who have money. When we pick up on energy and we pick up on these little sayings and these little comments here and there over time, they're like micro money aggressions. It's like a form of like a micro money abuse. But then we pick them up. And any of you who've been in toxic relationships, friendships, grew up in a toxic household, you'll understand what I mean by those. Like, I call them like micro abuses, and it's not to minimize it. It's these little slights, like sarcasm, these little quips, these little comments about other people, things that are masked as jokes, but they're really not funny, digs. And you keep hearing those over time. It absolutely reframes how you look at successful people, how you look at money, how you look at what it's like to have any kind of notoriety or accolades or recognition, what happens when you get exposed publicly, meaning more people have access to you, what that looks like. So the next question I have for you is, what are some of those micro money aggressions that you heard growing up? It could be from an uncle. It could have been from a teacher. It could have been from shows you watched on TV or stuff you just picked up that was going around in society and the mass media. And I want you to put them in your notes app. You can write them down. I need you to write these down. And I know it's annoying a lot of times when people say to write stuff down. Like if a therapist tells me to journal, I like run the other way. And so I don't give you guys too many exercises like that, but I don't care. Just put it on a Post-it note. I just need you to visually see it. It can be on a whiteboard for all I care. I mean, preferably like a solid office supply will be used, a few in this exercise. And look at what those are. And look at the verbal micro money aggressions, but also look at the non-verbal micro money aggressions. What happened around bill paying time or around tax time? What happened maybe when a parent was getting like their annual review at work, or they had a bad day at work, or they had a meeting with their boss? What happened when that parent caregiver, when something went wrong, terribly wrong at work, or there was like a leak in the roof, like an unexpected bill? What was their action energetically and non-verbally to running into people who had a lot of money? Another family member, maybe it was the wealthiest family member, which is all relative. Maybe it was some people who lived on the fancy street in town, or a celebrity. Like, I know my mom made lots of, and this was more in the weight department, given that I call it managed anorexia, meaning she's never been hospitalized for it yet. She would make these micro comments about celebrities' bodies. So while watching TV shows or in a magazine or to strangers in the mall. And so I picked up on that. And even if she didn't say them out loud, you could just sense her energy shift if there was someone who was thinner than her or if there was someone who was noticeably obese. So, of course, I picked up on all those nuances. So the nonverbal and the verbal. And I need you to really dig in and go, okay, I see where it's always easy to find evidence of the negative shit. You notice that? It's like when you go to a restaurant and like, I don't know, the food was cold, the waitress was a bitch, and then now you're like all of a sudden using Yelp for the first time in like 5 years and frantically writing something and like insisting on speaking to the manager. But like you have the best meal of your life. Most people don't go seek out the manager, or you have a great waitress or waiter and go seek out the manager to let them know and write a review. That's it's just how we're wired as humans. It's kind of sad, but it's true. You actually have to kind of force yourself, which is why I say to you guys, why haven't you written a damn review for this show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? A written review, it takes less than 30 seconds and it goes a long way. You want to support the show that costs me a lot of money to produce at this level and time and energy. That would make me feel very appreciated, and that wouldn't take you much time. So I really hope I just guilted you into doing it from listening to this. But your brain will focus on, okay, I can easily find evidence that money is the root of all evil and rich get richer and the poor get poor. And I bet you your brain can start spewing out examples of that. Examples. I need you to consciously and deliberately, intentionally look at the contrary of all of it. Show me proof that that is bullshit. Show me proof that isn't true. And you're going to have to dig a little harder. Don't just go, oh, I sat here for 5 minutes. I couldn't think of anything. You need to dig further because there is a lot of evidence of it. Maybe I'm your evidence. Maybe there's a public figure that's evidence. Maybe it's someone in your own family. So a lot of times evidence is staring you right in the face and you've not been seeing it because your programming and your mental messaging and wiring has this well-worn pathway on a hiking path. And that's the path it's easier to go down. It's clearer. So it just keeps going down that. We're creating a different path, a path that's much more beautiful, a path that's more scenic, a path that is actually safer. But that path isn't totally clear and it isn't well established yet. So yes, it's going to take some effort up front. So I want you to look at evidence of the contrary of these things that have come up of how it's not true. Quick example, my father was right in front of my face as an example my entire life. Now, I did not live with my dad, so he wasn't like my primary parent. They were divorced when I was 4. My dad was also an entrepreneur, and my dad is really the man who instilled the art of luxuriating with me. My dad is the master luxuriator. He loved the European lifestyle, the 3-hour dinner. He would go and he would call it pediddling, the art of really doing nothing. He'd go and pick his fresh tomatoes from the garden, make a salad, and then maybe he'd drive by his P.O. box later and then go swing by the office and, check in on a couple things for maybe an hour and then leave. He was right in front of my face, but I couldn't see it because I was being bombarded by all of the other toxic micro money aggressions coming from my mom, coming from society, because that's what I was around more. If I lived with my dad, I would have picked up other things, right? Right in front of me. And maybe, like I said, maybe it's me. Maybe you have a friend. Maybe you have a mentor. Maybe it's your own child. Some of you have birthed some humans that are here to be a mirror for you. And some of those ways aren't cute, but other ways are incredibly beautiful. You just might not be fully seeing it until now. I have opened up for you who want to go deeper on this journey on being able to finally shift your relationship with money for good, not temporary, for good, and have a clear, proven strategy to get to where you want to go in your particular business, in your industry. I've opened up my fall applications for my famous 2-month private coaching program. And in my business coaching program, it's set up so that we structure your business and offer so it's not so dependent on you. I'm all about your fun, your free time, and your well-being come first, and we design your business around that. And everyone's life looks different. So if you want to have that customization that you're not going to get in a mastermind or inside of a group program or inside my membership, and you want that one-on-one accountability, I take 6 private clients at a time. That's it. You can swipe up. The application link is inside the show notes. And then we can see if it's a good fit. And if I don't think it's a good fit and I can clearly guide you on where you want to go, I'll share that with you as well. But don't be applying if you think that this is some $1,000 thing. Some people are wild. This is not some $1,000 thing. I'm the Chanel in the industry, although I am priced significantly lower than people who have a quarter of my net worth and much less experience, because I don't believe in charging egregious prices in order to make millions of dollars. It's not necessary. But I'm also not cheap, nor should I be. Plus, I'm a tax deduction. I'm a high-level business coach, business consultant. And if you want the best, you have to be willing to invest in the best. And if you want people to invest in you, and you have resistance to hiring high quality or buying the best stuff in order to get the best result, well, then there's a disconnect right there that we need to unpack. There's some money wounding around that. If you're kind of playing cheap with your business, or cheap with your health, or cheap with your relationships, or cheap with your happiness, there's some stuff that we need to work on that's below that, because playing cheap, guess what that's going to get you? Cheap results. You go for the best, you're going to have the best results, whether it's you buying a damn suitcase or it's you hiring high quality accountability, leadership support, and help for your business. So you can swipe up. These spots go very quickly since I only take 6 and I don't always open these up. So make sure that you go in there. But you know what your homework is. Do this exercise. And if you want accountability and you're really serious about it, take a picture of it and DM it to me at ProjectME with Tiffany. Do that for accountability for yourself. Set a time where you need to send it to me by. Within 24 hours of you listening to this episode, whether you're listening to it, you're someone who's an avid subscriber and you're listening to it on the day it came out, or you're listening to it 2 years from now, maybe within 24 hours, send me a photo. And if you've typed it out, you can copy and paste it and DM it to me, and don't go, oh my God, this is so long. Tiffany is going to be annoyed. I wouldn't be asking you to do something that would annoy me. I want to make sure you do this exercise. And if you notice you don't do the exercise and you keep putting it off, well, there's an interesting thing right there that shows me without a doubt your money wounds are blocking your abundance, and they're actually controlling your life, and they're getting in the way of everything you desire if you resist this, because this is the next step. So now you can't say, what's my next step? What do I need to do? Wishing you great health, wealth, and worth as always. Love you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.